This is Gamer Weekly, bringing you the latest of what the video game scene has to offer. On today's episode of Gamer Weekly, I have Malcolm and Jenny from Woodsy Studios, and we'll be talking about their latest game, Echoes of the Fae. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Gamer Weekly. And with me today is Malcolm and Jenny from Woodsy Studios. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
That was probably the most chill intro I've ever given anybody. So
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing.
I think for the most part, you know, it seems like it's going to be a really chill thing. Most of the time, it sounds like someone who's I've gotten shock jock before, so I'm trying to not do that anymore.
Yeah, do you have a soundboard with like an air horn and like a cow mooing and a line from Family Guy?
Not yet, but maybe I can get. Maybe I'll start like a Patreon and be like, goals. Soundboard, $100. If you give me $100, I'll have a soundboard.
Yeah, get on that.
You're listening to Gamer Weekly.
I honestly wanted to have something that was a little bit flashier for the intro, because there is an intro, and you'll hear it when it starts, like when the episode starts. But yeah, no, I want it to be flashier, but you know, I got a budget of $0, so can't be flashy with zero. So you guys are, it's different, you know, what you guys are doing than who I usually have. So you guys make visual novels. So for those that don't know what a visual novel is, what is your best interpretation of what a visual novel is?
Well, it's a bit more like reading a book than your typical game. Very text heavy. But at the same time, you still have gaming elements woven in, and it's still interactive. So you'll also hear them compared to like choose your own adventure stories, where you're going through a story and you get various choices that pop up throughout it. When you make your choice, it'll cause branches in the narrative that can give you different relationships, different characters, different endings, all sorts of variations on the story. So that's the basic of a visual novel.
It's basically it's like one of those Goosebumps choose your own adventure style things.
Yeah, and it's also sort of similar to a graphic novel in that normal books that adults read don't usually have pictures unless they're graphic novels, and they certainly don't have music unless the author springs for putting one of those sound chips that are in greeting cards in every single book. So it's a really cool way to just combine different aspects of storytelling, both visual and text and music and gameplay, into a single way to tell a story you want to tell.
Yeah, and we do have parts of our visual novels that look a little bit more like a typical game. Like with our visual novel Seraphina's Crown, we had a debate mini game. So as you made certain choices throughout the game, like dialogue choices with other characters, you would get points in certain emotion categories, and those would affect your ability to argue certain topics in a debate. So we had this debate mini game. You were a regent in a fantasy kingdom, so you had to make these big decisions and then argue about them in court. So that would be easier or harder depending on the stats you'd gotten so far. So we had that mini game, and in Echoes of the Fae, we have a 2D side-scrolling world that you explore between scenes. So you roam around and choose who you talk to and that sort of thing. Sort of like point-and-click adventure, except you're really just kind of navigating.
It's a navigation and click adventure.
Yeah. It wouldn't. It's not. I'm reluctant to say it's like a point-and-click adventure because at no point do you have to get a bunch of cat hair and make a mustache out of it to fool somebody. But it is kind of in that style of gameplay where you explore the world that way.
You know, because I just got done playing Grim Fandango, the remastered one, and I wouldn't say it's much of a remaster because it still looked like it was from 1998. But I would say, yeah, no, there are a lot of puzzles where I had to use a walkthrough through the entire thing because I'm just absolute garbage at adventure games. And some of the things that like it was telling me, to the guide, it sounded like it made sense. But to me, I was like, How the hell was I supposed to know that?
Yeah. I don't have a degree in ornithology, so how am I supposed to know that birds are scared of balloon animals?
You know what? Yeah. Okay. Cool. You've played it too, so you know.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it was like, oh, you gotta get the packing stuff into the balloons, and you have to throw it into the canister and all this stuff. Like, what? And then later on, it was like you have to trick the main girl to like accidentally like catch her her leggings or whatever on fire, or like accidentally like spread ashes on it. I was like, how was I supposed to know that I was supposed to do that? Would I just sit there and just like, oh, eventually something's gonna work? Who knows?
Lots of trial and error.
Yeah. We have tried to eliminate all of that in our game, whereas the only mistakes that you can really make are mistakes that will affect how the story will unfold. I think across our games we have exactly one way to die. Does that sound right? Have we ever done it more than once? Like one fail state?
No, it was mainly in Seraphina's Crown.
Yeah, there's a fail state in Seraphina's Crown, but pretty much we just want the gameplay, the way that you've interacted with the story, to affect how the story unfolds, not to get you in any sort of situation where you don't know what to do or you lose.
Which is good, because the one thing I don't like about adventure games is that a lot of them have like the dead end thing. Oh, you didn't pick up that item like 14 hours before?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
screwed, man. Like the old Sierra games, like Space Quest and stuff, like they're solid games, but you got to really pay attention to like what you're doing. It's a lot of saving and trial and error and hoping that you didn't just completely ruin the game for yourself.
Yeah, and I think that when you're doing a kind of game that's a story game, a game where the most important thing is getting people invested in the story and the characters and everything like that, it's really frustrating to ever make somebody repeat something because they screwed it up. Because anytime you repeat something, it's going to lose all like emotional appeal. It's going to lose all tension because you know what's going to happen. And so it's much better to have a story when you're focused on the story. You know, not worry so much about making sure everybody does everything right. Making sure that they get a story that they enjoy and that they've affected.
Yeah, one thing that's very special to us about visual novels and how we approach them is that there are so many games with great narratives where the gameplay can get in the way. I mean, Grim Fandango, which is a great game, is a good example where you might kind of be enjoying the story, but you get stuck because of some really weird, obscure puzzle. And lots of visual novels, and particularly with ours, we try to eliminate that. So it's really about the story, and the gameplay elements we'll put in just for fun, for extra interaction. But we try to make them generally easy because we always want the story to be the focus, and we don't want the pacing to get too messed up by a frustrating gameplay element.
Yeah, because my experience, I'll be honest, my experience with visual novels is very limited, I guess. There were some of them that I played that I thought were really cool. Like one of them was, I think it was called like Go Nippon Trip to Japan. It was really, I thought it was interesting because it was like, here's all these cool facts about Japan. And then for some reason it turned into like a weird porn game like halfway through it. And I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. I don't know what's happening here. And then there was also Sakura Spirit, which that one was just kind of straight up. And I was watching more of a Let's Play of that one. But and then the Pigeon Romance game. I don't remember what that one's called.
Danganronpa, if you've heard of that, that's a really good like starter visual novel, just action packed, really really cool story.
Yeah, anybody who is trying to get into visual novels, who wants to see what they're like, first I would say play our games, but then if
right,
if you want to go for something maybe more traditional, or you want to play a Japanese game, because ultimately this is a style of game that is very centered in Japan for the most part, I would say Danganronpa or the 999, Virtue's Last Reward, the Zero Escape series are all very good examples of what those are. Although, the Zero Escape games have a little bit of what we were talking about with adventure game puzzles, but most of the puzzles in that are more math-based and more like logic-based, rather than, you have to pick up this item and throw the six-pack of cans down the garbage disposal to dislodge the key, which is Silent Hill, but that's neither here nor there.
Silent Hill was another one where I had to use the walkthrough the whole time because I was like, this defies all logic. Anyone that is sitting there and just knows automatically like what to do, like, oh, duh, it's this obvious puzzle. How could you not figure that out? Like, you're lying to me. You are so lying to me right now. But I feel like with Silent Hill, they kind of they've changed. They kind of went like the Resident Evil route where you just hit things with a pipe or shoot it with a shotgun. I'm like, wow, this isn't scary at all, man. Yeah. So let's talk about some of your visual novels. So the latest one that you guys have out is Echoes of the Fae. What is Echoes of the Fae?
So it is a fantasy mystery story. It's set in this war-torn world where a war has just ended that went on for 30 years between humans and the Leshen, which is our term for elves, basically. And so this long war has gone on and finally ended just because some Leshen fanatics killed so many people in a huge explosion that the remaining Leshen just wanted, like everyone just wanted the murder to stop, and they made a truce. So your main character is actually a human who has sort of been disowned because during the war she rescued a lot of Leshen when she wasn't supposed to, and is hiding a big secret, which is that she's able to use magic, and in the history of this world, no other human has been able to use any sort of magic other than just like tiny little parlor tricks that they train their whole life to be able to do. So she hides this secret and in the meantime works as a private investigator as her day job. And basically each episode covers typically like a mystery she's trying to solve as a private investigator, but of course there are overarching stories, kind of the mystery behind her power, and evil people who are still lingering in the world wanting to cause trouble between humans and Leshen, and all sorts of things like that remaining in the world.
Yeah, we wanted to combine sort of the high fantasy tropes of magic, elves, magical creatures, things like that, with the classic private detective story of a person who has been, a lot of the noir fiction sort of came out of post World War I, post World War II, like a world in which all these people came back from this horrible war and were scarred, and they didn't know what to do with themselves, and they had these traumatic pasts. The detective would set up shop and be sort of a mercenary character who investigates the corruption and everything that arose out of, this catastrophic events. And we set that in the world of a fantasy. And that in this case, we have our character be somebody who was dramatically affected by the war, in that she was injured in one of the greatest attacks on human city, and developed magic powers. And now she's using those magic powers to solve her mysteries in secret.
And so, what would you say that there's any? Because I feel like this is like the number one question on people's minds right now. Is there fan service in the game?
We are actually, so when you think of something like fan service, like
there might be
there might be sort of story kind of fan service. We don't do sort of exploitative visuals in any way like that. But like if you get into a relationship between two characters, if you're the kind of person who likes to say ship two characters, we want to put in options for you to pursue those romances and things like that, especially with our central characters. And we've started that up because this is actually an episodic series, so we can't go too far with that without totally messing up the pacing of any relationships of characters. But we lay the groundwork for it, and we will continue to explore it as the episodes go on.
Yeah, and with our romances in the story, we try to kind of strike a balance where they're both optional. Like you can do side quests and go to extra scenes to develop relationships with other characters. But at the same time, if you do have a romance with a character, we also try to integrate that into the story and make it meaningful throughout.
Yeah, early on, shortly after we released, we were asked, is this something that you could play with a kid? Like, if you wanted to have a story where had your, 8-year-old kid alongside you and you were sort of watching it together, and we said, yeah, because the only times you get into any of that stuff is when you choose to, and we make sure that it is very clear that you are choosing to commit to that sort of thing. And if you don't want to, then you can just play it straight as a mystery and not have any sort of romance elements. And I go back to what I was saying about the visuals and everything. We strive to make sort of T-rated games because we feel like there's a huge audience out there for people who want to play story-based visual novels who are limited by the fact that a lot of them are just, either pornographic or semi-pornographic, and we want to open up the medium because we think that there are a lot of people who play games and a lot of people who don't play games who would enjoy this medium if it were more accessible to them. And so while we have the romance, while we have the relationships, it's all very much, the kissing and fade to black rather than the explicit sort of thing that you see in other visual novels.
Either that, or it's like, it seems like any of the really big visual novels that people want to see get translated and stuff don't, it seems like, or people have to do like a fan translation, like kind of like how like the Fate series is, or like Steingate or something like that. It's like, it seems like the visual novel genre is more, I think you were saying before, it's like more of like a Western influence kind of thing. Like, it's more anime based, I guess. So, how do you go about like trying to like push away from doing that, I guess?
We just keep doing what we're doing, basically. And I mean, we've definitely seen a lot of mixed responses. We've definitely seen a lot of people who are not happy about the art style, which is not anime style. But then we occasionally get a few comments that are just like, thank goodness for a non-anime visual novel. People that like the art style. We basically just keep doing our own thing and hope that there are enough people out there that want to see something kind of different like this.
And so how does it feel to have that kind of like direct kind of criticism to it? Like, how does it feel to be able to like instantly see like that kind of like feedback, good and bad?
It's always hard, you gotta have to have a thick skin about these things. Probably the places where I've gotten just the biggest slew of comments like that have been on Steam Greenlight, and also like right after we've included our games in a bundle of some sort, where you've just got thousands of people looking at it all of a sudden and getting it for like a few cents, who know nothing about it and just rip it up really casually. But so you have to just kind of think about where it's coming from. Like, a lot of times it's probably not our target audience, that sort of thing. But I still try to look at those things just to see how people are responding, but not take it too much to heart.
And part of it is, and what Jenny said about the bundles, is the bundles that we've been included in have been tended to be visual novel or anime bundles. And it's really interesting to get the feedback from those people. I say interesting maybe in scare quotes here, but they come in, they buy the bundle not because of Seraphina's Crown, they buy it because of, say, I don't know, Bikini Harem 2, and
writing that one down.
and they see this, and it's more of a Western style, and it's not an adult game, but that's also good to know, because ultimately we need people who like visual novels to like our games. We need them to at least give them a chance, and I think that you always have to look at criticism like that from multiple perspectives. One, at the same time, you want to say, oh, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, but also, well, maybe this person does know something about the audience that we're trying to reach. And we're never going to go out and try and make Bikini Harem 3, but we at least can learn a little bit from the things that turn off turn off the visual novel audience and try and adapt better.
Yeah, because it seems like you guys are going more of like I get walking simulator kind of gets thrown around a lot in like the more story based kind of things, like kind of like how Firewatch and Gone Home was. It kind of seems like you guys are going more of like that route than like the straight up like traditional what is the visual novel thing, because like you can actually like move around in this game for one, like because most visual novels like click next, you click next, and you also have voice acting in it as well, which a lot of them don't seem to have either, where you actually seem to have a cast of people instead of like you get that RPG dot noise thing. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
The scrolling sound, and it's like it kind
Yeah.
of takes you out of it a little bit. So is it for the voice acting? Was that something that you guys wanted to have from the get go, or is that something that kind of came in later on? How did that whole thing work out?
Yeah, so we first started having voice acting with Seraphina's Crown, and it was definitely a tricky thing to figure out because, you know, our visual novels can be very long. I believe Seraphina's Crown was over 200,000 words, and there's no way all of that's getting voiced. But we still wanted the characters to have voices. We wanted some important moments and scenes to be voiced. So we have what we call expression lines for all the characters that are just kind of like short, punctuated phrases, kind of expressing a certain emotion that replay over the lines. And we have important scenes fully voiced, which is definitely a tricky balance. That's another thing we get some criticism for sometimes, because it's hard to go from expression lines to suddenly being fully voiced to not being fully voiced. Our thinking is that it's better to have some of that in there, especially for those really powerful moments, than not at all. So we keep trying to walk that line. We want to keep having more and more voice acting, but it's definitely a tricky thing when you have a whole lot of text in your game.
Well, if you ever need anybody to do some voice acting, I might know a guy, you know, slips business card over.
All right.
Sweet. So you guys have a demo available for the game as well. I have your Steam page pulled up. So so I guess basically if you want to check out Echoes of the Fae and you're not sure, right now, as of this recording, the Steam sale is going on, so you can throw your money in. That way they have a bundle for all their games as well. And if you don't know if you want to put the money in yet, there is a demo as well, so you can check that out and then buy the game as well. And I think you should buy the game because these guys are awesome, and you should definitely support awesome people. So so thank you guys so much for coming onto the show, and thank you for making a visual novel that is not, you know, Bikini Boob Butts Volume 17. But
Yes.
Now I'm writing that one down.
Bikini.
Thanks for having us.
Just got to make 1 through 16 first, but I think we'll get to 17, you know. So, yeah, absolutely, guys. Check them out. They're on Steam. Echoes of the Fae. And there is the Woodsy Studios story pack as well, and it is $11. So,
Yep, for 3 games.
for 3 games, which is pretty awesome. And also, they are on Steam Greenlight as well for trying to get episode 0 going on as well. And you can find a trailer for that as well on YouTube and on their website, woodsy-studio.com. So it's also really awesome to have people for me that are local. So who knows? Maybe we've encountered each other before and didn't realize it. Now, who knows?
St. Louis.
Woo! Yeah, got to get that Arch Pride going, you know.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for listening to the show. And if you enjoyed the show, I would say, you know, the whole clickety-clack, the like button thing, but that's clickbaity, and I don't like doing that. So if you like
I'll
it...
say it. Like, favorite, and subscribe.
There you like, comment, and subscribe. And, you know, Support my Patreon. I don't have one. Not yet. Who knows? I don't know. Some people have said, hey, try it, but I don't know. Maybe. So thank you guys so much for listening, and share everything. Let's go with that. Share it. If you like it, go for it. So thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Bye.